Hello and welcome to Worm Watts, where we harness the God-given power of compost worms to transform organic waste into amazing living fertilizer. Now, in our last look into this bin here, we were working on a bin that was going to be largely carbonaceous. And so this is one of our fungally-dominant bins. But one thing that you have to keep in mind, as we open this bin, we're going to see that this is the bin that we last time had full of wood chips, and we went ahead and moistened it rather thoroughly. And as you can see, it looks like it's nice and distributed throughout, the moisture is. And you can see that there's actually a little bit of growth on some of the chips, which is quite ideal. So this is really working out really well. But one thing that you have to keep in mind when you're dealing with wood chips is that they are very high in carbon, and their carbon-nitrogen ratio is very, very high. And so you can see that the, the moisture really penetrated throughout the bin. So this was a really good amount of moisture that we added in. All throughout the bin, we see that the chips are in seem to be fairly moist, and you can see the way that it's kind of grabbing onto even my glove, which is great. But what we're going to do, a bin like this is not going to break down very quickly because of just how high in carbon it is. So we are going to add a little bit of nitrogen to kind of get things going. It will still, because of the extremely high ratio of carbon to nitrogen, even adding in a fair bit of nitrogen is not going to really tip this too far from being a fungally dominant bin like we want it to be. So I'm actually going to be adding in an entire cantaloupe, an entire frozen cantaloupe. I'm going to go ahead and bury it into the bin along this end here. Oh wow, we got some kind of little bug in here. It buried itself in here. I'm not sure what kind of bug it is. Hopefully it will show itself. All right, well, it doesn't appear to want to come out, so. Oh, there it is. Looks like an earwig. So, all right. I'm sure that the moisture is really aiding in terms of it feeling welcome here. So we'll go ahead and pile up these wood chips right around that end. And one thing to keep in mind is if you are sensitive to molds and things of that nature, you might want to be careful with the wood chips as you stir them around, especially adding moisture. You may have some spores in there and things like that. That's why I'm using my gloves here. But I went ahead and buried the cantaloupe in there. And then I will go ahead, actually, we recently harvested another bin, and I've got some worms that I think would be perfect to go ahead and add into this bin. I think the bin needs a little bit more moisture though before we add the worms in. And additionally, I'd like to go ahead and add some of our grit if we're going to go ahead and add worms in here. So let me go ahead and get a hold of that so that I can add it to the bin. All right, so we are back with the ground eggshell. And I'm gonna go ahead and add that to the surface of this bin. And this is eggshell that we bake and then pulverize in a coffee grinder. And that allows it to be a really nice consistency for the worms to be able to utilize for the grit that they need in their crop to mechanically break down some of the food scraps, so, or some of the organic material in this case. So we've got a nice little winter snow here on top. That looks good to me. I'd like to add some more water. So let me get some of that. I'm gonna got the little spray bottle as usual. Just go ahead and spray the top of this down. And I'm not really sure if that earwig is going to pose a threat to the worms. So hopefully that won't be the case, but we'll see how that goes. Water this down. And over time, that cantaloupe obviously is going to thaw within 24 hours. I imagine it'll be fully thawed and will be releasing quite a bit of moisture. So I don't need to overwater this because there will be a large amount of moisture being deposited into this bin over time here. And I'm going to go ahead and do something I might not normally do, and that's going to be, I'm going to go ahead and add in the worms. The worms are here. They were harvested from the citrus crawlers bin, and so we've got some European nightcrawlers in here, and they've been in some wood chips and there was a little bit of broken down leaves in there, so I'm going to go ahead and add them in here. I'm going to put them on this end of the bin, away from the really cold temperatures on that side, and hopefully as this thaws out and as the moisture kind of balances throughout the bin, the worms will make their way over there. So really excited to see that migration happen. So let's get the worms in. Okay, so this is a noob mistake. I may have cooked my worms in the absence of oxygen by sealing this, and the smell out of here is quite something, and I don't see much movement. So I'm gonna go ahead and let's see how I did. Just gonna go ahead and let this down. I didn't think that sealing it would result in the worms losing their lives. But I am afraid that may have actually taken place. I thought that there was enough air in there for them to be able to respirate just fine, but I may have been mistaken. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go ahead and get some gloves on, and let's go ahead and just dig through here and see if we see anything moving. Not really seeing a lot. So just as a tip for you, do not seal your worms into a small closed container. So I'm not seeing them. Unfortunately, we may have lost those hard-working worms. Rest in peace to them. So we may need to go back and do another harvest, and this time make sure that we put them in a well aerated area. So anyway, we added in the wood chips. We added in as well some of the, there was some microbial life in the castings that we added in. Of course, that might have also perished in the sealed container as well. So an unfortunate development, but this is part of learning as a worm farmer. So that is disappointing. And you can actually see, if I can give you a closer look, you can actually see some of what leads me to believe that we lost them. Let me get the container back. Okay, so if you look in here at the container, you can kind of see just right there in the, as we zoom in there, what appears to be a worm body, and it appears to be kind of disintegrating and kind of falling apart. It doesn't seem to be as whole. Worms are largely water, as are even human beings, composed largely of water. But as you can see, it was, you can see it's definitely decomposing there and just kind of almost like melting away would be the best way to put it. But yeah, that's an unfortunate development, but this is the bin. We've gone ahead and we've set up the cantaloupe. We've added the eggshell, and we've added in what was supposed to be some worms, but at this point is just some organic material that was deprived of oxygen. So we'll go ahead and let this settle. Again, rest in peace to those worms, and we will go ahead and do another harvest, and the worms that we take out of there, hopefully we'll be able to place them into this bin. We'll still be using European Nightcrawlers, but we'll have to get another set of pioneers for this bin. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something kind of like I did, and hopefully we'll catch you in the next video.